between you and your therapist, and I think you should go work that out. I really, really do.
Yeah. The pretentiousness, you face. You're a asshole. You are a asshole. We know what type of person he is. Get Sid. Get Carnivore versus Vegan by Sid Garza Hillman. I mean, is this really a debate? Seriously? Let's see what he has to say.
When I first started doing what I do, nutritionist, actually, before I started doing what I do, I was strict nutritionist.
Okay, you're a strict nutritionist. So basically what you're saying is that everything you were taught in school was based upon a bunch of bought and paid for propaganda, and you were indoctrinated. I wish that weren't the case, but it is the case. So unless you've done your own private studying and reviewing of topics, I don't know if you ought to be trusted. Not all nutritionists are bad. A label is neutral. It's about what you say. The truth is sufficient no matter who is saying it. Stand alone. So.
It's the food thing. And I realized pretty quickly, like within a few months, that health and happiness were a way bigger picture than food. I know food is the hot topic, and I know...
Well, hold on a minute. So you said health and happiness is more important than food. First of all, health is necessarily intertwined with food. Necessarily. Mental and physical health. And also, happiness is a hedonic goal. It's fleeting. You shouldn't be striving to be happy. You should be striving to take on responsibility and making the world a better place and being self-disciplined. Happiness is not... That's a hedonic goal. You should be aiming to be fulfilled.
That philosophy and ethics is not a hot topic. When I graduated from college...
Yes, it is. It is a hot topic. It's a very hot topic, actually. I don't often talk about it on my channel. I don't like doing that because people that actually purvey the truth realize that whenever the first thing they realize is that philosophy and ethics undergirds everything. Every single thing that you can think about, it all does. And then the second thing they realize is that attempting to determine which is the true ethical framework, which is the true philosophy, philosophical framework, most people for decades will try and think about this, or will think about it for decades, and still, whenever they arrive at their positions, will still not be certain of their positions. That's why I don't do it. Because if I don't know what I'm talking about, if I'm not certain about my positions, then all I'm going to do whenever I talk about it is think aloud. And there's people that do that. Jordan Peterson does that. He says it himself. He thinks aloud. So people that... And then people get frustrated because they're like, well, he's not making any sense. He's just a pseudo-intellectual. And it's like, well, he's thinking aloud. Sometimes what he's saying doesn't even make sense in the moment. He's thinking out loud. He has said this. Anyway.
And they announced the philosophy degrees. There was 7 of us. I realized that it wasn't about food. That inspired my first book, Approaching the Natural, which this much is on food and the rest is not about food. So over the years, and it's been a while now, I have tried to downplay food with clients and in talks and everything else, trying to...
Okay, that's not good. You're a nutritionist.
Broaden people's perspective about living well in the modern world. And once in a while, and as much as I...
Which involves indicated dietary inputs.
About food, once in a while I get drawn back into the discussion of food. This is one of those times. So,
well, if you're a nutritionist, then that makes sense.
What I want to talk about today is the carnivore diet.
No. There's no such thing as the carnivore diet trademark. Slap a trademark on there and that's it. A diet of only milk is carnivore. A diet of only grass is vegan. A carnivore diet. This is why it's not about carnivore on my channel. It's about attempting to purvey, or really discover, establish a species-appropriate, species-specific diet, or the best approximation that we can arrive at to such a diet in a modern world. in the modern world that we live in today. That approach just so happens to be carnivorous from every hard inference and every observational inference that we have that has any utility. The ones with the strong signals and not the ones with strong noise that in many cases outweighs the signal entirely.
That is, all the rage, and it's out there. And so I'm going to talk about it a little bit. The carnivore diet, in case you
No. A carnivore diet.
don't know and can't guess, is all meat, no nothing else. It's just
No, not necessarily. Eggs can be in there. Dairy can be in there. Seafood, of course, well, but that's meat. That's meat. So no, it's anything derived from animals, which is why I am a proponent of a carnivore diet. I'm not a proponent of the carnivore diet because that indicates, the latter indicates, that literally anything that is carnivorous is appropriate. People that, if you are unaware, my dear viewer, of my positions on certain carnivorous things like dairy, check out a video in the top right corner of the screen. I did a video on this. My opinion about carbohydrates, my theories I've posed about carbohydrates, check out the next video that's in the top right corner of the screen. Is zero carb always ideal? I still believe in it, obviously, and I'm zero carb, and I think everyone, if they have the capacity to do so, should be. But anyway, so no, it's not only meat, but the best approximation to a species-appropriate, species-specific diet in our modern world is a diet that consists primarily of the flesh and associated fat of large ruminant animals, with added fat to taste in the forms of butter, tallow, lard, suet, and ghee. Other animal fats might be okay as well. Added salt to taste, and water, eating when hungry, not eating when not hungry. It's not just about diet, as you said. It is about lifestyle as well, getting sufficient sunlight. Sunlight has an effect on metabolic rate because of the effect on the electron transport chain in the mitochondria from photons of light. Grounding is important as well, which is not voodoo pseudoscientific nonsense. It's a real thing. We have a grounding port in our walls for a reason. The earth has a charge. So, there's other things as well. And given the fact that we live in a modern world, I promote nutraceuticals, one in particular, or one brand in particular, that being Cerule, but primarily Stem Enhance Ultra to help out with that. And if you'd like information on that, links are in the description below. You can also email me behind the scenes at edgoki@pm.me if you're already curious to learn how to earn those products for free, because who in their right mind wouldn't want that?
all meat. So, couple
So no.
this, and I just want to stress that this video is not about the ridiculousness of the carnivore diet, because it is.
Okay, so there we go. I was actually being nice. Believe it or not, I was being quite nice in my usual, sort of choleric fashion still, my blunt, stern, austere fashion. But now, no, that's your opinion based on nothing but a misunderstanding of human physiology, observational paleoanthropology, biochemistry, which is intertwined with physiology, comparative anatomy, even physics when talking about calories, but I mean, relevant to his claim here, not at all. So no, that's your opinion. Let's see if you give anything to back that up here.
Science-based and whatever.
What do you mean science-based? Okay, so what's your name again? Let me just go over here. Sid. Okay. You wouldn't know what science is if it slapped you upside the chin. And I know that because you just said science-based. Science is ambiguous. There is a myth that has pervaded the post-Enlightenment world for a very long time, which is that material science, scientific investigation, is the be-all, end-all when it comes to truth. It is the only source of truth. Okay? Historically, throughout history, hence historically, there were actually wars fought between factions that believed in material investigation being the be all end all when it comes to truth, and revelation. Revelation that consisted of many religious groups. Um, anyway, and so you had like the Jerusalem thought and Greek thought kind of thing. And it was only until very, very recently, in the grand scheme of things, that they actually started to coexist in Western civilization. There's an element of revelation and there's an element of material investigation that we have a responsibility of undertaking to discover the truth about the underlying logic of the universe, basically. The unmoved mover, as the Greeks called it. Okay. The problem is people believing that material, so there's a ratio then. If they coexist, there's a ratio of, should it be 50-50? Should it be 60-40? There's been debates about that, but there's no longer debate as to whether or not they should exist. Until very recently. Now, revelation, which is basically just the truths that become apparent to you spontaneously, that's starting to be, pushed aside, and everything is becoming material investigation, science this, science that, science says this. That's the first flaw. That's the first thing that's gone wrong in society. The second thing that's gone wrong in society is conducting science improperly. There is this fundamental desire for science to be the be all end all of truth. People already believe it. And yet in practice, they realize how difficult it is to prove causality. And so since it's extremely difficult, and believe it or not, in many cases, especially statistics, which is the entire basis, the entire foundation for human nutrition science, which is what he's referring to. In statistics, it's not possible. Causality is an ideal like God is an ideal. You should always strive to attain it, but you should always understand that you won't. Okay? These people believe science is the be-all end-all of truth, but when they realize through practice how difficult it is to achieve causality, and as I said, it's in statistics, it's not possible, they start to establish causality. In other words, order, if you want to abstract causality, order in places of chaos, even at the expense of responsibility. They start saying things are causal because they can't fathom the idea of chaos, living in a chaotic universe. They establish order where it's not responsible to do so. That's what I mean by that, which is not only irresponsible, it's dangerous. The most abstract example of this is association equals causation. That's basically what they're doing. Because they believe that material investigation is the be-all end-all of truth. You must be able to discover the truth with science. And if we can't do it by following science responsibly, conducting it responsibly, we're going to conduct it irresponsibly through smoke and mirrors to make you think so, and to actually delude ourselves into thinking so. So, sir, you want to talk about science-based, you're referring to human nutrition science, which cannot inform upon causality, cannot actually give us any inferences of any utility when it comes to what is indicated and not indicated, or in other words, contraindicated. Buy now, link in the description below for second edition, in all formats, ebook, paperback, hardcover, and audiobook. Yeah, see, I can write a book too. See that? Okay, anyway, it's not able to inform upon those things. We look at broader inferences. The broader, the better. The broader the inference, the stronger the signal. Okay. We look at the Darwinian principles of evolution to determine what is and what isn't indicated in human physiology. Okay? Okay.
But I have a problem with like calling it, we're not carnivores, we're herbivores.
No. Wow. Whoa. Holy. Wow. Wow. I have just been blown away. I thought this person, when he sat down, was sensible. We're herbivores? I'm sorry. Where do I even start with that one? Why do we have an appendix, Sid? Why? Why do we have an appendix? I mean, seriously think about that for a second. Why do we have an appendix? Well, because is a vestige, it is a vestigial organ from a large cecum that we used to have throughout our evolutionary past when we were frugivores, when we actually were herbivores, a type of herbivore called frugivores. That's amazing. And so, as a result of not consuming plant material any longer because we came down from the trees and became scavengers, our brain size started to increase. And since that was very energy intensive when it came to, it takes a lot of energy to build that brain up, so to speak, it needed to take the energy from somewhere else, a place that wasn't being utilized. That happened to be our cecum, which slowly started to shrink into an appendix. And if you're wondering, a cecum is an organ found primarily in primates that is designed to ferment fiber into volatile fatty acids that are often short-chain fatty acids, propionate, butyrate. Those are the two primary ones that I'm aware of for fuel. Because believe it or not, herbivores still use fat for fuel. In fact, every single terrestrial animal with extremely anomalous examples, I'm thinking of hummingbirds and sunbirds, use fat for energy production purposes because they don't consume simple carbohydrates to any significant degree whatsoever because good luck finding them. Okay? That inference alone is enough to dispel this myth. That and our efficiency meaning the rate at which we can produce glucose and sustain blood glucose levels without consuming carbs, of gluconeogenesis. Our efficiency for gluconeogenesis, the rate at which we can maintain glucose levels without consuming carbohydrates. Our efficacy for doing so. It's that of hypercarnivores. Okay, what does that tell you? It means that there was no negative selection pressure imposed on our liver to produce glucose or to produce glucose less efficiently. That would have been imposed if we consumed primarily simple carbohydrates because they're toxic above a certain concentration. We also know that blood glucose levels have to attain a far less or far lower value for it to be harmful in human beings than in other animals that actually do consume lots of simple carbohydrates. So the shrinking of our appendix, or sorry, the shrinking of our cecum to an appendix, and then, well, the fact that we've maintained that there's not been a positive selection pressure to develop a bigger cecum because we ate a lot of fiber throughout our evolutionary existence, as well as our gluconeogenic efficiency being that of hypercarnivores. Well, there you go. Sid, come on. Seriously?
Logically, everything.
No, not biologically everything. That doesn't even make any sense. Okay, you sort of gestured towards your teeth here, which are that of frugivores because of our frugivorous past. But if you actually understood evolution and you understood positive and negative selection pressures, you'd understand that the only time that you have a trait removed is during a negative selection pressure, which are only imposed onto an organism whenever that trait is proving to be counterproductive and or deleterious to the organism. Our teeth never proved to be that way because when we started to eat meat, well, we ate it perfectly fine with the teeth we already had. And we didn't have a positive selection pressure to cause these teeth to morph into a dog's teeth because we didn't hunt animals with our mouths. That's how this works. No, Sid. The only time you have a trait removed is during a negative selection pressure or whenever there is a positive selection pressure on another part of the body to develop something else that requires the body to take the energy from elsewhere. So our cecum shrinking wasn't because it atrophied or something. It's not because it atrophied. It's because the body needed to take it from elsewhere, energy from elsewhere to build up a brain. Association doesn't equal causation, as we know. So really, I should be careful with using the word because. That is the prevailing theory, at least. Because as much as evolution is talked about as if it's a fact. It is technically speaking a theory, but I will say it's not. It's technically a theory, yes, but it is not just a theory. There is a reason why it is the most prevailing theory. So anyway, getting contentious today.
Thing. So I'm not going to even get into that.
Of course you're not. No, you said because. I'll tell you right now. I'll finish your sentence. Because you know that you wouldn't stand a chance convincing anybody with any rational intellect that that's true. It is not true. Okay? And before people are saying, well, there's no evidence that our brains grew in size because of a bunch of meat eating. Well, I find it very interesting that a phenotypic adaptation to a vegan diet is a smaller brain. Smaller doesn't necessarily mean less intelligent, because what if the neurons in the brain just become more concentrated, more dense, neuronal density, so to speak? Except whenever that happens, that doesn't seem to happen. Whenever the brain shrinks in vegans, that doesn't seem to happen. So anyway, okay, cool.
Do a little thought experiment today. It's all the rage. And I know that telling people what you want to hear is a moneymaker. I get it. It's just...
Yep. Okay. So this is okay. So what this is? Oh, I just want to tell you right now, my dear viewer, what this is that you're seeing on the screen here. This is pretentious humility. I know, oxymoronic. I know. But I'm sure that you understand what I'm saying. Trying to act all humble when in reality, deep down, you're not at all. So first of all, it's glib. All of this. It's a posturing attempt. But the reason I say it's pretentious is because it's more so to do with the whole, I know people are just, most people, they want to hear this stuff, and I know that it's they're in desperate times, and so they're going to believe a message like that, but they just don't see the truth for what it is because they're in such a lowly position. Stop. Stop. Okay? Give me a break.
sad and kind of boring and cowardly, but I know why people do it, and chiropractors dole out nutrition advice, and so do very, very popular podcasters. I want to assume two things.
Wow, the pretentiousness. That just, I mean, it went from 0 to 100, didn't it? Wow.
And not even assume. I want to posit two things.
Okay.
Obviously clear.
There you go. If you're going to start referencing human nutrition science, and you're going to preface that reference with, it's obviously clear, get because it isn't. Not even close, actually.
That you can be extremely healthy. And
define that. Define that. Health is the absence of disease process. So healthy is the characteristic of having health, at least identifiable disease process. But no, in the ideal world, like strictly speaking, the absence of disease process. Yes, correct. So what do you mean extremely healthy? You either have disease process or you don't. Unless you're talking about health as a spectrum where you have 1 or 2 disease processes versus 5. The person with 5 is less healthy than you. I get it, but okay, whatever. Let's just keep going.
be and a
Happy is not a goal that you should be striving for. I already covered that. And a what?
stellar elite athlete, and be
stellar elite athlete. Okay, and be what?
And be 100% vegan.
Oh, God. Wow. What kind of athlete are we talking about? An athlete that engages in activity that doesn't require you to recruit lots of muscular activity? Yeah. At least per Twitch. Of course. So usually marathon runners. Yep. Runners. Great. Is it indicated to be consuming a vegan diet? No, it isn't. Also, are you serious? Look at the presentation of herbivores. herbivores. Look at the presentation of human carnivores that are not consuming a carnivorous diet, that are consuming a vegan diet. Wow. Wow.
Now, vegan, there's no such a thing as vegan diet, which I always say.
That's ridiculous. Yes, there is. It's a diet that attempts to minimize the exploitation and suffering of animals. Okay? That's what the dietary approach is. Okay? And it just so happens that a carnivore diet then is a vegan diet. Congratulations. You want to be vegan? Well, eat a carnivore diet. Because guess what? One cow a year would last me, one cow would last me probably a year, maybe even more, in terms of food. That is one animal death. One. Okay? One vegan meal. Oh my God, I hate how trite this is, but it's trite for a reason. One vegan meal contains lots of death, so to speak, of insects, smaller animals, some relatively medium sized animals. Okay. And also, plants are lives as well. We need to understand that. But then that gets into a philosophical conversation of the value, what determines the value of life and all that. So, anyway, cool. So, yes, there is a vegan diet. You always say that. Well, it doesn't matter how much you say it, it's wrong.
No animal products, but assuming you're eating the healthy version of vegan, whole plant.
So, there's no, oh my gosh. So, we're talking about health again and healthy. Okay. We should be talking about indicated and contraindicated. Once again, buy the book if you haven't already. Audiobook is self-narrated, by the way. I'm all about authenticity. You get to hear my voice for 7.5 hours. Anyway, because then if you're using those definitions, which is once again what we ought to be using, there's no such thing as an indicated vegan diet in the colloquial sense of vegan, which is plant-based. There is such a thing as an indicated vegan diet if the definition is a diet that attempts to eliminate and reduce to the greatest extent possible animal exploitation and animal suffering. That is a fucking carnivore diet.
Fiber, feeding the good gut bacteria.
Nope. So, oh my God, the trite arguments. Fiber is also a contraindication in the human diet because it isn't required, evinced by the fact that, first of all, the amount of time that our genes evolved withstanding fiber consumption is extremely minimal. Well, the amount of time that our genes encountered fiber in terms of like us consuming it, that's not minimal. The amount that we consumed regularly each time was, because inferentially speaking, we only consumed it during times of food scarcity. Okay? So that's one thing. And also, there is no observed deficiency disease when one abstains from fiber consumption and removes it completely from their diet. Okay? You would sit here and say, well, that doesn't mean it has benefits. To which I would have two responses. Number one, first of all, you are not considering the fact that it actually definitely has adverse effects on the enteric nervous system. You know how we know this? Because of one thing that you folks often say is a benefit, which is that fiber increases mucus secretion in the gut lining, which protects the gut. That is like saying, if I cut myself on my hand, that white blood cells rush to the area, and therefore that protects the area more. Yeah, because you've injured it. Mucus is released due to abrasions to tissues. Also other irritants, obviously, but That's my point. Fiber is an irritant. Mucus is secreted in the nose when it's irritated. Okay? It's upregulated in its creation, let's say, because you always have some level of mucus to protect yourself, yes. But if it increases mucus secretion, that's a sign you shouldn't be consuming it. Number one. Number two, it's also indigestible. And last I checked, if you can't digest something, you shouldn't be eating it. You're going to sit here and say we're herbivores when we can't digest fiber. That's very interesting. That's very interesting because all these other animals actually can process fiber, even if it's not through digestion. Most of it they're utilizing. We don't utilize it. Okay? So no, ridiculous. But also, let's get into the part two of my response, which is the benefits that you purport to be benefits can be yielded from other things that are oftentimes yielded from the consumption or embarkation upon a carnivore diet approach. What are these things that you're talking about, Eddie? Well, the main one that I'm thinking of is the production of short-chain fatty acids in the small intestine, particularly butyrate and propionate. Well, it turns out that beta-hydroxybutyrate is the primary ketone body that is produced during ketosis. Okay? The other one is acetoacetate. And then you've got another, which is acetone, which is produced from acetoacetate in the bloodstream through an enzyme. I don't know the name of the enzyme because I don't care. It's very small in an amount. Okay? It's also volatile, and you can smell it on your breath if you become ketoacidotic, and that's where the fruity smell on people's breath comes from if they're suffering from ketoacidosis. Okay? So, anyway, so there's that. And then also you just said good gut bacteria. So let's actually just come full circle back to what you just said. Good according to whom on the basis of what? If you are saying good because it was associated in epidemiological studies with positive heart health outcomes, well, then you're a moron because that is an association, a very, very, very reductionist association. Okay, first and foremost. And if you mean good because chemically speaking, it does something like produce serotonin or something, that begs the question as to whether or not you can get the same benefit, if not to a greater degree, with other gut bacteria that are produced from eating other things. Those gut bacteria that you are referring to are not required. They will die off and you produce new ones whenever you eat a different diet. Okay? That's how it works. This whole gut microbiome thing, good gut bacteria, bad gut bacteria, we don't know anything about the gut microbiome. There are trillions of bacteria in there. Trillions. Cut me a break.
There's a ton of pro athletes in virtually every sport.
So appeal to consensus, appeal to majority. Good. So that begs the question as to whether there couldn't be more extreme athletes, that are engaging in a lot of high intensity sports or maybe long distance sports, whatever it may be. If most people consumed a carnivore diet and most adeptly phenotypically adapted to such a diet, because that's another problem. You can't just do not consume a carnivore diet overnight. Don't change. If you're going to change your diet to anything, let's say that you're watching my video right now, you're new and you hate my guts and you don't agree with carnivore. Okay. If you decide to transition to a vegan diet tomorrow, well, fine. My suggestion would be do not do that overnight. Don't. Okay? I would obviously my main suggestion would be not to do that at all, but whatever. But don't do it overnight. 6 to 8 week transition period, slowly but surely transitioning to maximize your phenotypic adaptation and really maximize not the phenotypic adaptation, but maximize your sense of homeostasis during that transition period. Okay, so again, I mean that's just ridiculous. There's a ton of pro athletes. Yeah, okay, so what? There's a ton of people in the United States that are consuming a standard diet that have a ton of muscle. Well, so what?
Clearly, the idea.
No, not clearly. So you're going to use these absolute terms, and I'm going to call them out every single time because it's not subtle to me. I hear those words.
You can't be is ridiculous. Of course you can.
Well, you can be vegan. Yes, absolutely. You absolutely can. I'm not saying you can't. You absolutely have the ability to be vegan. Great. That's not the problem concerned here.
That's already go look up any sport and look up NBA, NFL, ultra runners, swimmers, MMA.
I'm sorry. You should look up those high intensity burst and repeat sports, NFL, like you just said, and you should see how long those athletes maintain a vegan diet. You look up swimmers and people that engage in aerobic activity, aerobic in quotes because that implies that there's a distinction between aerobic activity and anaerobic activity, which people pretend there is when there isn't. All activity is aerobic at all times. All of it. All of it. Okay? Even during the anaerobic activity. It's not like you start exercising and you increase the intensity and then you finally hit a bar where the intensity gets so hard, you hit a threshold bar of intensity wherein you just stop breathing oxygen. You stop breathing. Like oxygen consumption is maximized at anaerobic activity because your muscles are still using oxygen. They're using a ton of it, actually. So anyway, if you look at people that are engaging in aerobic activity, then it's more likely that they can maintain it because, well, they don't require as much muscle recruitment for their activities. There you go.
Well, I could go on and just look up. Of course there are. Okay. So
Okay. Yeah, so no one said you can't do a vegan diet. Is it appropriate or not? Because let's also put it this way. Even if everything you just said right there was correct, NFL players, years they're vegan, they're maintaining muscle, etc., etc. It goes back to what I just said. What if they could be even better if they embarked upon a carnivore diet? This has no bearing on whether or not a carnivore diet is more indicated than a vegan diet, okay? Because the answer's very clear. It is. And even if you're someone that's a carnivore that consumes, I don't know, 20 grams of carbohydrates, guess what? You're still a carnivore. Keep that in mind.
can you do that? Of course you can. So
Yes. Now get to the point where you also say, if you're actually intellectually honest, or have even a remote level of intellectual capacity, where you say that carnivore can be embarked upon as well. Is this going to be a whole lack of evidence equals evidence of lack argument, which is a textbook fallacy? Oh, well, there's not that many people doing a carnivore diet, so therefore, it's bad.
protein is a bunch of bullshit anyway. So why don't we?
Oh yeah, it's a bunch of bullshit. Yeah, that's actually your opinion, Sid. That's actually your opinion, Sid. I love people that talk like that. Sarcasm. So it's bullshit in your opinion. So you're going to neglect to mention the to consider the bioavailability of protein. You do realize that the majority of protein in grains is actually gluten, right? Which you're not really absorbing that much of anyway, and it's not being incorporated into your structures. And if it is, to even some extent, no, it isn't. No, it isn't. It's a lectin. Lectins being anti-nutrients. Well, actually, plant toxins. They're plant toxins, Sid. Now, just because plants are toxic, because here's what we need to get out of the way. Plants, every single plant is toxic to some degree, and it's because a plant is a life, and therefore, since it is a form of life, it has to have defense mechanisms to prevent it from being killed. Animals can move, they can run, they can bite, all these other things. Humans, for example, we can punch, we can kick, whatever, but we also have the ability to reason. We can strategize to get out of situations, whatever it may be. Okay. Plants have none of that. So they create defense chemicals. This is why when you go out in the wild, it is a risk to consume a plant. This is why poison ivy gives you rashes. Plants are toxic, but there's a spectrum. Some plants are less toxic than others. Some plants are so little toxic that you can actually consume them and not have any immediate consequences. Okay? Hint, hint. I'm getting at the supermarket foods that we have today, the plants in supermarkets, okay? Fruit, all that stuff. Cool, fine. The notion, though, that plants being toxic to some degree means that you shouldn't consume any of them, that logic alone is not sufficient. That's not appropriate. And the reason for that is because if that were the case, there would be no such thing as an herbivore. Herbivores consume plants. Just a side note, though, the plants they consume, it's usually one or two, because if they consume another, then they will die because they're toxic. Which gets to my point. My point is, it's about how genotypically adapted to that plant are you. That determines whether or not it's indicated to be consuming it or not. Okay. And there's many inferences that I can get into, and like I said, I get into it in my book extensively, that point in the direction of, well, there's not genotypic adaptations in human beings that cause any plant to really be indicated. There might be small, tiny indications for exogenous simple carbohydrates, fine, and exogenous even fiber, to probably an even smaller amount, but not to a degree that they're required at all, and not to a degree that there's any deficiency disease noted or observed whenever people remove these things from their diet in every single study that's been conducted for every single period of time that each study has been conducted for, and based on all the anecdotes that we see. So anyway, that's interesting, isn't it? I mean, I don't even know how this started. I don't care.
I want to dispense of that nonsense just right away.
No, Sid. You didn't dispense with anything. You threw it aside without contending with it. So, I mean, I guess you could say you dispensed with it, but you didn't do it with any intellectual honesty at all. You didn't bring any argument to the table. You are spewing your inane opinion, Sid. Okay? Based on, frankly, based on an anti-human ideology. I guarantee that's what this is. I can tell when a vegan is a vegan from a mile away. A mile away. Because of the sanctimony that exudes from them. And the sneering, the scoffing. Just this superiority complex they have. And they can't hide it. That's what you are. So that's what it's based upon. It's based upon this anti-human ideology. It's not pro-animal, it's anti-human. You know how I know that? Because if someone were embarking upon a vegan diet, and no matter what variation you encouraged them to embark upon, they had issues, and they were seriously having some major health problems. First of all, you delude yourself into thinking it wasn't the vegan diet, but you do so much to the point where if you knew that eating meat would help them, and they knew it too, and they considered it, you would look down upon them. And you'd say you were never vegan to begin with because you even considered eating an animal. You are anti-human, not pro-animal, because anyone that looks at a vegan deteriorating because of veganism and says to them, well, it's better that you die, basically. You won't say that explicitly, but it's better that you suffer than to eat the flesh of another animal. You're anti-human. You're not pro-animal. Okay? Just want to get that out of the way. Now, innocent until proven guilty. He never said that. He never said it. But I have my suspicions.
Do this. I want to dispense of that nonsense just right away. You can do this.
Okay, so yeah, see, he's pissed off almost. Like, you can tell. You can do this. Yeah, we already covered the can word. Okay? You can do whatever the you want. Okay? You can be a functional alcoholic, Sid.
Are there carnivore people and keto people killing it in sports? Also true.
Yes, also true, Sid. There you go. Now, are you going to sit here and say, since there's less of them, that's an indication that is not as good as vegan? I hope not, because there's plenty of people that have said that.
Now, I would say I want to see them in 20 years from now, but not.
Oh, yeah. So you wouldn't say that about vegans. You wouldn't say that about vegans. Yeah. Look at this pretentious attitude here. These snide comments. Like, yes, of course there are. No, I would say that I want to see them in 20 years from now, but no, I'm not saying anything. I'm not. Oh, shut the fuck up. Oh my God. Wow. Yeah. So completely ignore all of the vegans that have had problems, even sustaining it for 5 years. The last vegan I talked to was years ago when I wasn't carnivore. I didn't really know anything about diet, but I kind of was like, vegan? Oh, I don't know about that. And the last time I heard of her, she had to get B12 injections because her B12 was so low that her nails were falling out and her hair was falling out of her head. I'm not making that up. I'm only going to say that that was one person, but it doesn't help their case. And I've heard plenty of other problems. Like, it's deterioration, really. It really is. The symptoms you see on carnivore are usually electrolyte disturbances, insulin dysregulation, sort of thing, like too low of insulin, and then you get they're all every other problem is sequelae from that. It's all like electrolyte issues, right? Which leads to muscle twitching, but that all goes back to insulin. It's always an insulin thing, which makes sense. Fine, great. That's not a sign of deterioration. Every symptom I hear about on the vegan, forums and all that stuff, it's all deterioration symptoms. Always. Their muscles waste away. They're pale in the face. They're B12. Like their nails are falling out. Their hair's falling out. That's deterioration. So Sid, I can write a book too. And I can sit in front of a camera too. And I can say words too. I can also have consultations with people too. Okay? I've done all of that.
For this video, I'm going to say equally that it's also possible to be super healthy and happy and even a stellar elite athlete on a diet like the carnivore diet or the keto diet. But here's
no, not the Sid.
So again, we're going to just start out by saying equally possible on either one of those things. Healthy.
I wouldn't say equally possible. Sid, that's your opinion. I really wouldn't say equally possible at all.
Vegan thing or carnivore, keto, whatever. Okay? High fat, high animal foods. Okay? Both.
I mean, this guy said we are herbivores in the beginning. Don't forget that. Don't forget he said we're herbivores. So you might be saying, oh, well, maybe he is intellectually honest. Maybe he is objective because now he's saying you can do all these things carnivore, like whatever. He said we're herbivores in a snide, snarky way. Okay? No.
Protein, by the way, but whatever. Okay, so we got okay, high fat, high animal foods. Okay, both are high protein, by the way, but whatever. Okay, so
oh my God, there it is. There's another little insertion, a little tacit insertion there. No. In terms of the absolute number of protein, first of all, not necessarily. You can do that on a vegan diet, and that begs the question as to how much of it you're absorbing. How much of it is protein that is actually like made up of amino acids, and how much of it is protein that is like anti-nutrients? That's another question. Okay, but then either way, how much of it are you absorbing in both situations? The bioavailability of protein can be, I mean, frankly, easily measured. I mean, there's going to be some noise around the signal, obviously, fine, but you measure the amount of nitrogen-containing catabolic byproducts found in urine and fecal matter, and you compare that to the amount of nitrogen consumed as protein within that same time period. Okay? There you go. That's one inference. I think that's really the best inference we got. Unless you're going to use some nuclear magnetic resonance spectroscopy or something to measure some absorption rate or something. I don't even think that's possible, really, though. So, anyway, It's very obvious. The bioavailability of plant protein is extremely low, if even present at all, with certain proteins in plants. Okay?
Okay. Assuming that both of those are equally possible.
Okay, so it's an assumption then, because I don't believe they're equally possible at all. I definitely know for a fact that they're not equally sustainable.
Then, here's my question. If they're both equally possible, you can do this one and kill it in your life, you can do this one and kill it in your life.
Well, so again, though, another enthymeme, effectively, another claim that's based upon a premise that is not explicitly stated but needs to be questioned, which is that begs the question as to whether or not those are the criteria of health. It also begs the question as to whether you're f***ing right about this or not, because I just challenged that. You brought no proof to the table to support that claim at all. None. You've just said words. I mean, keywords that you're saying: if, assumption, assume.
Why? And this is what confuses me ethically. And this is why this is not a...
Oh, ethically. So this is... Okay, so it's theology. Okay, so here we go. It's an anti-human ideology that you... So I was right. What a shock. What a shock. Ethically. Give me a break. Vegans hate humans more than they love animals, whether they realize it or not. They would let a human die from a vegan diet instead of saving them with meat, and delude themselves into believing that, first of all, that's even ethical in the first place, but second of all, that the person even died because of a vegan diet. That's what they do. And I don't know how much they delude themselves. I don't know to what degree they actually believe that, because I feel like sometimes they might think to themselves, they might know in the back of their heads, no. I know for a fact. I have my suspicions. But anyway.
Food. This is a philosophy and ethics discussion. This is...
Okay, so here we go. Well, I already covered that in the beginning in a superficial way. I mean, I don't really have to get any deeper than that. What did our genes evolve to withstand? That is what is indicated in our physiology. Therefore, we are obligated to eat that way. From every inference we have, it is carnivorous. If you transgress from that, you risk succumbing to disease. And if you think that succumbing to disease in order to purportedly prevent animal deaths, which, by the way, once again, we can get into that discussion because it doesn't, but let's say it does. Let's say that it did. If you think that that's appropriate because you're going to save animals' lives, well, then you are evil and anti-human. There we go. We're done. I mean, seriously, that's it. We are done. You are anti-human. You are anti-human. Because at the end of the day, animal lives are valuable, but human lives are invaluable. And every person knows that. Implicitly. Sorry, not implicitly. Intrinsically. They know that. So I'm done. That's really as far as the argument goes for me. And then when people sit there and go, well, why do you believe that human lives are more valuable than animal lives? That's speciesism. There's two things that you can respond to in that regard. First of all, it's speciesism to sit there and implicitly or explicitly say that, well, insects and small animals are less useful and important and less valuable than the bigger animals like cows and pigs. And the reason that's relevant is because they're killed in large swaths, along with insects, through plant raising, especially industrial plant raising. And if you sit there and go, well, okay, you're assuming that we support industrial monocrop agriculture. Well, you can't eat a vegan diet without it. You're gonna have a garden and grow all of your food that you eat every single day, the plant food that you eat every single day, from one garden? No. It would have to be industrial. So that's also interesting. You can only eat a vegan diet in a modern industrial world. That's interesting. Now, of course, a vegan would probably respond to that and say, so what? Now that we live in a modern world, we can finally make the correct ethical decision. We can advance ethically. And again, it just goes right back to where I started in the beginning. Because I steel man every argument. I really do. I steel man everything. Like, I really do. And I get better at it every day. But it's a waste of time. It's a waste of time arguing with vegans. I don't talk about ethics that much on my channel for that reason, but if you'd like to watch a video where I actually did that, I reacted to Earthling Ed last year. You can check that out in the top right corner of the screen.
Confuses me. If they're both possible, why wouldn't you choose the less douchey of the two to...
Oh, yeah, Oh, thank you, Sid. Thank you for making this video, because frankly, the worse these videos are, the better my videos are. Okay, like, this is hilarious. Wow, Sid, thank you. Thank you for making a complete fool of yourself. You see, he is a deeply angry person, and I saw it from the beginning. I saw it from the beginning. He said douchey. So we know where he lies. We know what type of person he is. Get Sid. Get It's so ironic. Oh, why wouldn't you choose the less douchey of the two? When the most pretentious, sanctimonious douchebags are the vegans. Shut up. Nobody cares. Eat your vegan diet. I don't care. Of course, well, he would have a bone to pick. No pun intended. He'd have a plant to pick. With my my claim that there even is such a thing as a vegan diet, which obviously the is, Sid. This moron thinks that he knows anything about anything. Amazing.
If they're both possible to live well and be healthy...
Well, that begs the question, because no, Sid, I would disagree. I would absolutely disagree. And you know what? You know who else would disagree? A bunch of ex-vegans. Okay? Go check out what a vegan diet did to Ariana Grande, man. That wasn't just a vegan diet, though. I'll tell you that. She's got some, I think she has an eating disorder, which you can make an argument that a vegan diet is an eating disorder. I'd have to think about it. I don't know. I'm not reluctant to say that, but I'm not reluctant to accepting that if I actually thought about it deeply enough, and looked into it. But putting that aside, I think she actually has just some disordered eating habits, but whatever. I'm getting way off track. Anyway, yeah, so no, we're looking for most indicated for our physiology because we're human beings. We have an obligation to eat in accordance with that, genetically speaking. So anyway, cool.
For a long time, and I could argue against...
Define long time. That's a relative term. That is a relative term. Is long time 1 year? Depending on what context you're talking about. Yeah, for most people, in their perspective, it would be 1 year. That'd be a long time. It'd be a long time, 1 year. Define long time.
Whatever. Why wouldn't you just do the thing that is better for the world?
Oh man, this is actually like comical. Better for the world. Purportedly. It's purportedly better for the world, and yet empirically, it seems not, and logically, it definitely isn't. Because there's a difference between empirics and then logic, right? So logically, no, it isn't. Empirically, there's not that much to back that up at all. In fact, there's quite a bit to discount that. This is coming from someone that is extremely objective. So don't conflate passion with non-objectivity, okay? Because I am very vociferous in front of the camera. That doesn't mean I'm not objective. When I get pissed off is when people are convicting about things they ought not to be convicting about. Now that you know that, you should basically watch my entire channel and you'll see that's whenever I get angry. Being convicting about things you cannot be convicting about. Now, of course, given the fact that I am a carnivore and I share that ideology, I get less of a sort of visceral reaction whenever a carnivore influencer or a keto influencer does. That's just because I'm human. But I still do not bite my tongue. I don't bite my tongue. It's yeah. Anyway, let's continue. So this is now we're just gonna watch this child, throw a tantrum. That's what we're gonna see. Okay.
Nicer.
Oh, nice. Because nice is what we should strive to be in the real world. Yes, nice. Really nice is synonymous with meek. You should be respectful when it's appropriate, of course. You should be cordial and amiable. You should approach a conversation with intellectual honesty, with humility, with forgiveness, with grace. You shouldn't be nice. That's not the same thing. None of those things are synonymous with nice and kind. Okay? They're not.
And not destroying our environment. Why wouldn't you?
Destroying our environment, says the person that is in favor of large amounts of industrial monocrop agricultural farming taking place and replacing a bunch of regenerative agriculture because, cows are bad for the environment, though. Are you kidding me, Sid? Like genuinely, are you kidding me? Wow. You're losing your mind. You were throwing a tantrum. Holy Great. Good stuff.
Go, well, if they're equal, all things being equal, I can be healthy either one. Why wouldn't I do this better one?
Well, maybe because of the fact that also, even if you're going to approach this from an ethical standpoint, a carnivore diet that encourages regenerative agricultural farming, which actually helps to replete soil with organic matter and makes it healthier and actually makes it sequester more carbon from the atmosphere, by the way, if you're into the whole change stuff. Maybe that's actually better for the environment, Sid, and not excavating a bunch of land, pushing a bunch of animals out of their natural habitats and oftentimes killing them as a result of it, to replace it with a bunch of large swaths of plant material that is contraindicated for human consumption, and the farming of which involves the killing off of billions of insects every year, and the destruction of a bunch of small animals, the killing of them, and even worse soil quality because of how much you have to reuse it without regenerating it with animals on top of the soil, with organic matter. Maybe it's actually better for the environment to do it that way.
For all reasons, except
No. Except what?
potentially if you believe that this one tastes better. Okay.
Well, man, caught it before it was even said. Oh my God. There are some people that they choose not to be vegan, not because they've actually thought about things deeply, but because, well, meat tastes good. I don't think those people are great people. Believe it or not, I really don't. I really don't. Because if there's a possibility that you could be committing like an animal genocide, so to speak, because that's what they often say. If there's a possibility of it and you don't think about it, you just shove it out of your brain. Come on. You can't not think about that. I mean, that's if you had a moral conscience. So anyway, if the reason that you dismiss a vegan diet and you just say, well, I just like the way meat tastes. If the reason that you don't embark upon a vegan diet is because you like the way meat tastes, yum yum. Like you're not moral.
Yet I don't agree, but whatever. Okay.
Okay, that's your opinion. Great.
Is that enough?
So hold on a minute. You understand that some things are subjective, right? Because you just put that out there, right? But you don't believe that morality is subjective. That people can believe that certain things are moral and certain things aren't, right? Now, this gets into a moral relativism argument versus an objective morality argument, obviously. That's been going on for millennia, right? But I mean, it is absolutely the case that some people can believe things are moral and act upon them because they think they're moral versus otherwise. So do you believe that there's an objective morality, or do you believe that morality is relative? Because if you believe morality is relative, then we can't communicate with each other. The world would fall apart. Just so you know that. That's a fact. Whatever. I don't even know where I was going with that.
Of a reason to do something that is objectively shitty. And
Oh, so you do believe in an objective morality. This is the most snarky, pretentious wad I've reacted to before on my like by far, hands down. Astonishing. Okay, you are a little baby, frankly, Sid. You really are. Like, listen to this. Let's rewind and listen to this again.
enough of a reason to do something that is objectively shitty. And can't we just agree on that? I don't think anybody would disagree.
What a I mean, like I said at the beginning, it was a bunch of glib, fake nonsense. It's a way of sort of sublimating your anger into a bunch of extreme, obnoxious sarcasm to cope. That's really what he's doing in this video. Get a grip on your emotions and shut the up. Eat your plants and stay silent.
You just disregard anything.
No, hold on a minute. So now you're talking about disregarding. I didn't disregard anything. I haven't disregarded anything. I actually contended with everything that you said in this video, which hasn't been that much, frankly, at all. You've just thrown a hissy fit. Okay, but, you know, wow.
Isn't the more brutal of the two things.
Okay, so now you're talking about brutality. So I'm not a fan of the industrial sort of way or fashion in which we supply people with animals for food consumption, for consumption in most countries. I'm not a fan of the industrial farming sort of, or the industrial animal agriculture or animal raising methods at all. I'm not. There are bona fide instances of torture imposed on the animals, actually, in many cases. Like people gleeful about killing the animals with alacrity. Okay. That's not cool. I don't like contributing towards that. In fact, next month, I've had plans to transition over to a local farmer that is about 45 minutes away, actually, in terms of a drive there. I don't care. To spend a little over double of what I've been spending on groceries. Precisely because I don't like to contribute towards that on an ethical basis, but also on a separate basis within the confines of morality, that being I believe in supporting farmers and giving them my money, not Sam's Club, okay? Nothing wrong intrinsically with Sam's Club, but you know, you don't want them to have a whole monopoly on it when there's a risk of them putting things in the meat that are not appropriate to be consuming as human beings, genotypically speaking, that you don't have any control over because they have full control over the food supply. Anyway, so that's a sacrifice right there. I'm going to have even less money. We'll see what ends up happening. I've had that planned, but, you know, we'll see. I'm not a fan of it. I'm not a fan. I'm not. But you know what? I'd rather have that than a genocide on human beings. Because humans are more valuable than animals. And you know what? Like, the fact that we're arguing this, I mean, I guess that's just a sign of a regressing society, right? There's a fine line between progression and regression. In fact, that line isn't very clearly visible. I don't think it ever will be.
They're both cause damage, by the way, but this one is...
Yes, exactly. And you're about to say that one, the carnivore diet approach, right? Causes more. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. On a logical basis, Sid, No, you moron.
Go beyond.
So you're not even elaborating or articulating what you believe. You're just being emotional, which I guess is sort of a sign, a testament to what a vegan diet will do to you. So association doesn't equal causation. Is it A causing B, or is it B causing A? Is the vegan diet causing him to be emotional and effeminate, or was he effeminate beforehand and that's what caused him to gravitate towards a vegan diet because of emotional appeal? Don't know. Maybe both. They're not, you know what? They're not mutually exclusive. They could both be causing each other. Sort of a positive feedback, well, negative feedback loop there.
It's not nice either, period.
Okay, so we already covered nice. Okay, and you keep using these absolutes in order to tacitly sort of get people, beguile people really, into your ideology, Sid. You're being an ass, and you know you're being an ass. Stop it. Period.
It's not kind.
Okay, so we already covered nice and kind. Great. So is it essential and indicated for not just our physiology, but for the planet? Well, seems so.
So here's my bigger problem with this discussion of so-called discussion of food, because it isn't.
Well, frankly, I don't really care to hear what your other problems are, because we already heard how unsubstantiated and how emotional and illogical your other problems are that you have. The other problems you have are with carnivore and whatever. See, I mean, it's one thing to argue the ethics, then it's another thing to argue like what we evolved consuming and what we are anatomically, for example. A lot of people, they get so ensconced and entrenched in their ideology that they start to try and make the facts around them conform to their ideology. We are herbivores. No, you believe in eating a vegan diet because it's more ethical. You don't get to then say that, well, I would love it to be the case that it's also healthy and indicated in our physiology. So I'm going to find and I'm going to cherry pick a bunch of facts and say and make a composite inference that is, once again, full of cherry pick nonsense to say that we're herbivores. And also, I'm not going to elaborate on it. Yeah, okay. So good. This is the quality of a typical vegan. This is a typical vegan.
About food, it's about ethics, and it's this.
It's about ethics. Yeah, great. So we already covered that.
Somehow, in this world today, the carnivore keto thing is associated with strength and power and toughness.
Well, yes. And there's many reasons for that. First of all, meat helps you to build more muscle more conducively than eating a vegan diet will. Okay? There's also the sense of it's a primitive part of people's brains. It is primitive, okay, that associates animals and flesh with aggression because of hunting and killing. Typically, that is a male act more than a female act, a masculine act. It takes aggression, it takes anger, more masculine emotions than women did in the past. Females. That's really exclusive to humans, though, because in other species, like cats, for example, females and males have those instincts still because they both hunt, okay? They both did that. But typically, that's not the case. Okay? Hunting requires aggression, it requires a sense of anger, it requires ambition, and it requires strength. All of which meat is associated with. We already covered the strength part of it. Meat increases strength more conducively than vegan protein, but also strength allows you to acquire meat in the wild. So A to B and B to A, right? Like another feedback loop kind of thing. It's all very clear, okay? It requires virility to acquire meat in the wild. It requires aggression. It requires logic, okay? Because of hunting, like the tactical skills and all that, okay? That's why it's associated with it, Sid, for obvious reasons. That doesn't mean that women shouldn't be consuming meat. In fact, they did so as well. They may not have hunted it, but, or at least hunted it as much. Okay, there's some studies that are purporting now to say that that was the case. And again, I'm objective. I would not be averse to accepting it. However, I am more doubtful of it because of the current state of science today, which is trying to basically, it's become political. And so now everything is like women can be men nowadays. And so anything that I see, I'm a little jaded against it. It doesn't mean that it's necessarily false, but I saw a headline about it and I kind of scoffed a little bit and I went, okay, was that actually intellectually honest discovery and investigation? Or is it political and cherry-picked nonsense that actually doesn't point in that direction at all? I don't know. But women have similar traits as men. The eyes at the front of our heads and our rotator cuffs and all that. The question is whether or not that is because women engaged in hunting to the same degree as men or to a sufficient degree to cause those changes, or if it's because men did that, but they passed their genes on through mating to female offspring, and then male offspring, and then more female offspring, and the female offspring kind of acquired those traits, right? So this is I love thinking about this stuff. I really do. I do. It's the sign of a not whatever the antonym to ideologue is. Okay, that's the sign. Okay. But anyway, that's why. That's why I said that's why it's associated with masculinity. Great, cool. So it's not illogical. It's not just some fundamentally flawed premise or prejudice. It's not. There's a reason, and I just laid it out.
Which is really weird to me.
Well, that's because you're illogical and stupid. And emotional.
It seems to me that living on principle, doing what is right,
yes,
better, ethic.
Yes. Okay. So you're implying right now, before you even finish your sentence, you are implying that a vegan diet is necessarily, unequivocally, unambiguously the more ethical decision. We already covered that. Okay? Yes, exhibiting principles is reflective of self-discipline, which is also, if you're going to characterize it in certain columns, a masculine trait, because discipline itself is a masculine trait. We get where you're going, okay? We get it. But if the foundation by which you believe things are moral and not moral is flawed and illogical, well, it could actually be a net loss for your masculinity, can't it? Like believing that you should be eating plant slop exclusively.
Is a stronger position.
So yeah, we already knew where that was going, so I already called it.
If eating this way makes you feel tough,
well, who said that? You said that, Sid. Nobody said that. It doesn't make me feel tough to eat steak. That's not what it is. It's the image of meat is associated with strength. It's not that eating meat makes me feel strong emotionally. I'm just eating, Sid.
Between you and your therapist, and I think you should go work that out. I really, really do.
Yeah. The pretentiousness, you face. You're a asshole. You are a asshole. And you know what? You're like a little teenage girl. I mean, it's so fitting. It's so fitting. By the way, if you're watching and you are a woman, I am not against you. Okay? I'm just exemplifying the fact that there are differences between men and women. Okay? There's a reason why women are considered catty. In fact, it's actually a strength because they do that way better than guys do. I kind of envy it. It takes some they get smart with it. They get pretty intelligent with it. I think they're good. They're good at it. But you know, he's good at it too, and it's sad because he's a guy. Anyway.
Assuming both are equal.
Okay, but that's what I'm saying. They're not equal. They're not. Assuming both are equal because it fits my ideology to do so. Yeah, great, Sid.
A lot of time trying to discredit this, and I can spend a long time but assuming they're both possible.
Right, so that's where you went wrong.
Wouldn't you do the thing that's nicer on every level?
Oh, so again, begging the question as to whether you should be nice in the first place. But also, put that aside. You're assuming. You're making another assumption.
And can taste great, or at least good enough to not cause a bunch of damage in the world.
Right, so you're begging the question, aren't you? It is an enthymeme that you were espousing right now. A syllogism in which the premise or premises are implicit and, in other words, not explicitly stated. Okay? That is an enthymeme with a premise that is in need of questioning. Well, it's not in need of questioning right now because I questioned it 1,000 times in this video. But anyway, let's continue.
That's what makes me confused. Food is a distraction.
No, it doesn't make you confused, Sid. You're saying that in order to act like you're objective and you're analyzing things with intellectual honesty and good faith, when you're just being a dick, it just confuses me. It's like when someone says, I just think it's really funny how, yeah, shut the fuck up. You don't think it's really funny how, I'm just curious. No, you're not, Sid. You are throwing a hissy fit, a temper tantrum. You're getting hysterical. Calm down.
From this discussion, this really isn't about food. This is about how we behave in the world.
God, wow.
And what I'm seeing in my limited, exposure to social media, because I don't have any accounts, but even just watching YouTube, is somehow associating this kind of behavior with strength, and it's.
Well, we covered that. I'm not going to spend any more time on it because it's obvious and it has been said, Sid. Continue.
Not strong. It's cowardly.
Right. It's cowardly. It's cowardly. Yep, it's cowardly. Yeah. Good stuff, Sid. We already covered this. What's cowardly is your inability to confront the opposition with intellectual honesty. That's cowardice. The reason that people get very heated during conversations, the reason that their fight or flight kicks in when they're arguing with someone of the opposite side is because it is a threat to their ideology. And the reason why it gets you so amped up and activates your sympathetic nervous system is because the way that humans act in the world is predicated upon a foundation of beliefs. Think of your belief structure as a boat and think of you as on that boat. If that boat, or sort of a part of that boat, starts to break off, that scares the shit out of you. The ocean represents chaos. Humans hate chaos because you don't know how to act, you don't know how to think, you're wandering aimlessly, and you don't know where to go. So we formulate beliefs. That's what we do. But you are a coward if you don't confront the beliefs and challenge them. You are a coward if you don't contend with the idea that the way that your boat is made up in the first place, the materials it's made up of, aren't sufficient to giving you the best ride on the ocean. Okay? Because if there's a possibility that that's the case, if there's a possibility that you have to take apart that boat, rebuild it, if there's a possibility you have to do that multiple times, and you know that, but you don't confront that, that's cowardice. You're choosing comfort over confrontation. And that, my friend, Sid, that is cowardice. So don't give me this whole speech about cowardice. Don't give me this whole sanctimonious exudation I'm not having it. No one with any rational intellect is having it. So once again, you're throwing a tantrum. Good stuff, Sid.
It's easy. And
no, it's not because it's expedient, okay? Because now that's what you're saying. So good. You're still full of shit.
Just easy to draw people in and tell them what they want to hear, and it's like a thing, and it's not helping the world move ahead. What is
right? So you've basically throughout this entire video not brought anything to the table, any science to the table, any ideas that are of any substance to the table. You've thrown a fit based on prejudice. Good stuff, Sid.
strength here? What are we teaching our kids that actual strength is? Is it or is it I'm going to live on principle even if it's not the most popular thing?
Okay, so both of those are acceptable, but what are your principles? What are they based on? We already covered this, didn't we? Both are not only acceptable, but they're actually, well, first of all, your first thing that you said, oh, are we teaching kids that strength is, what does that mean? Let's actually clarify that, because no, strength isn't unbridled aggression, Sid. Nobody said that. Okay? In fact, unbridled aggression would get you killed in the wild. Did you know that? It would get you killed. You have to use your brain, your intellect. Okay? There's many different things that strength is characterized by. Okay? We're not talking about barbarism and unsophisticated anger. Okay? You said that. You're implying that.
What I think is right. What I think is
you think is right. So first you said it's objective. You said something is objectively evil and wrong, basically. Objectively bad. And now you're saying things that you think are right, which implies subjective moral relativism. So do you believe that morality is objective, or do you believe that you think this thing is right? Because if you think it's right, you are implying necessarily as a function of that sentence that morality is relative, which means you cannot say that my decision is objectively bad at all. By what standard, Sid? Are you God? Are you omniscient? And omnipotent? Well, you're definitely not the latter, I'll tell you that much. You eat a vegan diet.
best for the world. That's a really hard thing to do every day. And it takes a
it is a really hard. So again, with the sanctimony. So with the sneering sanctimony. Looking at you below their noses. That type of which is impressive that he's able to do that, and he still has that tendency when he's not on social media. Usually social media corrupts you into that type of person, but he said he's not on social media. So
work to maintain strength to pull that off. This is easy. The carnivore keto thing's easy.
Oh yes, it's easy to do carnivore and keto. Yeah, I'm sure that you know how easy it is to quit sugar entirely. I'm sure that you know that it takes no strength whatsoever to only eat animal products, especially if your animal products are really only ruminant meat. I'm sure that you understand the strength that goes into that, the lack thereof, rather. Yeah, I'm sure that you get that, dumbass.
Thing. It's what we were all raised on. You don't challenge it.
That we were not all raised on keto and carnivore. Who the told you that? What the hell is wrong with you? You are a haughty, arrogant imbecile.
You don't read the science. You just go on what.
The science. Yes. Yeah, the science. The science, guys. He totally understands how to interpret science. He totally gets it completely, by the way. He totally gets it. I mean, the science is unequivocal. The science. F off.
And what some jagoff on YouTube tells you to eat.
Jagoff. Yeah, I'm just some jagoff, guys. Buy the book, if you haven't already.
Just do that thing. Who's got big muscles. Okay, fine.
There's plenty of people with big muscles that are also eating a standard diet, by the way, that have plenty of plants in them. So we're not simply saying that the epitome of strength is to be found through a carnivore diet. Because there's plenty of people that are also standard dieters. Lane Norton has a ton of muscle. He eats a standard diet. He promotes that. So, I mean, I'm struggling to see your point here. Probably because you don't make any sense, Sid, and you're emotional and illogical, which go hand in hand, by the way.
But doing what's right is a whole nother world.
Right, right according to whom, on the basis of what? Because you said what you think is right, which implies that you believe that morality is all subjective and relative. When earlier you said that things are objectively wrong. So you need to clarify that. You should have probably sat down and thought about these issues very, very intently before you sat in front of a camera and spoke about this, because you're making a fool out of yourself. You've done so the entire video, by the way. Even at the very beginning, I knew something was off. Okay? By the way, when you start your videos, get going. Okay? Because even when my intros were long, which I've cut down on those, I'm starting to at least, I never sat in front of the camera for 10 seconds, getting everything situated to show some sort of fourth wall moment or something. Don't do that again.
Hard work. It's the best work. It will make you happy. It will make you healthy. Absolutely.
No. What are you talking about? Are you talking about a vegan diet or are you talking about a carnivore diet? I highly doubt the latter.
Also do really, really good things into the world.
Okay, so you're talking about a vegan diet. Yeah, no, those are your opinions. You have no science to back that up, because science really can't inform upon those things, especially human nutrition science, because it's based on inferential statistics. And you know nothing about that. You know nothing about statistical inference, by the way. Absolutely nothing. You don't know the fundamentals. It's very clear because you believe that the science is clear. Sid, get
Affect people in a very positive way.
No, it doesn't, it seems. It deteriorates people.
That's why I'm talking about food, kind of. But again, in all the books I've had published.
Wow, that's great. I have a book published too. I'm sure there will be many more to come as well in the later years. Okay? So what? That doesn't mean that you know what you're talking about. A book is an opinion piece written by an author.
And all my podcast episodes.
Who cares? This isn't a podcast, but I mean, the point still stands. I make videos. So what? That doesn't mean I'm correct.
These YouTube channels.
So what?
And blog posts.
So what? Sit still, by the way.
Strength is doing what is hard and right and principled.
So doing a carnivore diet, embarking upon a carnivore diet isn't hard at all. Good. Great. So it's not hard. It's also not right, whatever the that means. And it's also not principled, apparently. There's no principles undergirding the carnivore diet approach. Nothing. None. I didn't make a video called The Carnivore Diet Explained in 5 Simple Steps or anything like that. Anyway, okay, cool. Whatever.
Strength is until we get that back, things ain't going our way.
Right. So now you're trying to basically aggrandize yourself and probably reinforce your own image of yourself in your mind, that you are strong. Which I don't know you. I have no idea, but I mean, this is not a good first impression. I hope this is a character. I really do. Wow. Okay. So great. So he's got all these books out. That's fantastic. So just because you have a bunch of books out doesn't mean that you know what you're talking about. In fact, we already know that to be the case. At least people with actual sense, you know, the people that actually have sense. So anyway, yeah. So apparently, you, my friend, my dear viewer, you are a horrible human being. You're not strong. It doesn't take any strength to embark upon a carnivore diet. It's not easy. If you're a sugar addict, yeah, that's not a thing. Apparently, there's no such thing as breaking an addiction from sugar. So that's cool. You're also destroying the planet. Yada yada yada. Blah blah blah. You're a terrible person. Okay. And also, if you healed your conditions with a carnivore diet, if you came to the carnivore diet realm or whatever, because you were extremely ill and it healed you, well, sorry, you're still a bad person, because in order to heal yourself, you killed a bunch of innocent animals. But I'm pro-animal, not anti-human. Okay, anyway, if you enjoyed the video, my ethical viewer, leave a like, subscribe to the channel. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, what are you doing? I see you. I see you. Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. And also, once again, buy my book, Contraindicated. It explains things very thoroughly. A closer look and revision of mainstream health axioms that have perpetuated illness, disorder, and disease for over a century. If you have not bought that book already. And also, something that I need to talk more about. This guy is a moron. This guy is an absolute moron. He does podcast episodes. He does YouTube videos. He writes books. Great. But I didn't hear him say he takes on clients. But he makes books and he sends a message to other people. Okay? So what needs to be done is more people on our side to stand up against that nonsense. But a lot of people don't want to listen to you if you don't have any authority next to your name. Not at all. They believe you don't know what you're talking about. You feel powerless. You feel helpless in that regard. Because even if you know what you're talking about, if no one listens to you because you don't have an authority tag next to your name, then what's the point? Well, you're in luck. Because I am affiliated with a carnivore certification program that basically gets you internationally accredited as a certified coach. A lot of people don't know that in order to be a coach, it requires nothing. You can just call yourself a coach and you're a coach, legally speaking. However, when you become internationally accredited as a coach, you acquire insurance more easily. You get other perks that other regular coaches that just call themselves coaches don't acquire at all, which helps to protect yourself against, problems that may arise. Everyone has problems. That's why we have car insurance, despite the fact that you may be a very good driver. You still have it, just in case. So if you're curious about learning more about that program, getting accredited, learning modules from myself, I've contributed many modules towards that program, refer to the links in the description below for the website. And also Coach Peter, the person who heads the program, his socials are in the description below to actually contact him regarding a negotiation regarding signing up for the course. Because at the end of the day, we do need more coaches. We do need more people to understand health science, dietary implications, other health implications in human health. And we need more people to be able to consult with people that are struggling. Adapting to a carnivore diet phenotypically can be a challenge, especially if one is already afflicted by metabolic issues. So we need more people to know more about those things, and Coach Peter helps tremendously. If you want to learn more about that, link in the top right corner of the screen. Linked in the top right corner of the screen is a an interview that I did between myself and Peter. I interviewed Peter himself, and you learn more about the program in depth. And you also learn more about Peter himself. He's been coaching people for over 20 years, so he knows what he is doing. So if you're curious about that, links are in the description below for that. And with that being said, join me next time when we are reacting to more people throwing hissy fits because they don't know how to control their emotions and they don't know how to think with their rational intellect. So, till then.